28-year-old mum of two, Chelsea Williams, says she had to stop breastfeeding so as not to make a scene, but was left feeling anxious as there are no such official restrictions in place.
So we're asking today, is breast best?
Well, joining us in the studio is the UK's foremost social behaviour and etiquette expert, Liz Brewer. Good morning. Always lovely to see you, Liz.
And we also have Jen Culley, a breastfeeding counsellor and birth doula, who's in Leamington Spa, Royal Leamington Spa this morning.
Morning.
Let's start, Jen, with you on this one, should we? If it's making people feel uncomfortable, which presumably this was, should that not be taken into account?
I think, to be honest, I can't believe we're still having these conversations in 2023. If somebody feels uncomfortable when they see a mother feeding their child, they can simply avert their eyes or look away. It's that simple. And it's so well established that women's rights are protected here in law. So the Equality Act 2010 makes it illegal for businesses or anyone really to discriminate against a woman feeding her baby in public. So it's really simple to me, but I do get really upset every now and then. These stories raise their head again, and you do get people coming out saying, well, shouldn't people just cover up? And actually, no, they shouldn't. It's their right to feed their baby in public.
OK, well, let's get the views then of Liz, who is one of those who thinks that perhaps this mum would have done better to have covered up. Liz, how would you sort of square that with the mum who said that she felt distressed and upset by all of this?
Well, actually, my sympathies are really lying with her. But what I find extraordinary is, what's the difference between breastfeeding a baby on takeoff and during the flight? It's a bit like switching your phones off. To me, it's senseless. And in this day and age, in actual fact, it's against the law, I believe, to tell somebody to stop breastfeeding in public, as long as they're doing it discreetly. And why should it really offend? Quite right. What you said about averting your eyes. You know, there are many ways of breastfeeding without having to sort of, I suppose they're objecting to looking at their breasts, but nowadays you have I think it's called a nursing cloth, and you can do it quite discreetly. But the problem here lies, I think, not so much with the air stewardess, but with her employees, because I gather they've now looking into it and they said, oh, that wasn't their policy. And indeed, the law says that she can't tell somebody, nobody can tell a woman in public to stop breastfeeding unless it's in a dangerous area or it's men only or whatever. So the whole thing about this is actually, it's preposterous. The whole thing is preposterous, and my sympathies lie with that young couple and their little baby.
It's interesting. Jen, I was just going to say, I mean, a lot of people, it's a bit of a fine line. I totally appreciate what you say about, you know, it's a right, it's perfectly normal. And I have to say, look, from a personal point of view, I think it's the most natural thing in the world. Therefore, how can you object to it? I don't get it. However, Lara's been in touch and said, I don't have a problem with breastfeeding as long as it's done discreetly. And that's the caveat. But, I mean, you can understand the perspective, but why should it have to be discreet?
Whenever anybody starts a sentence with, I don't have a problem with, but it means that they have a problem with it, doesn't it? So I just, this idea that it should be done discreetly, I actually believe that when most women are breastfeeding, the vast majority of people will have no idea. I can share something. So when my baby was really small, we were at a playgroup, I was holding them, I was breastfeeding them, but I was walking around. And one of my friends actually went to take my baby off me to try and help me. And I said, no, stop, they're actually attached. So that was somebody right in front of me that didn't even realise my baby was attached. So firstly, I think women are generally discreet just because that's the way breastfeeding is. It's not overt. It's like you said, it's really natural and quite quick for most women. And yeah, just this idea that some people find that offensive, I honestly think that that is a reflection of something that's going on for them. And maybe they need to kind of reflect and think, why is this bothering me? And because I should not be projecting my own issues onto this person who is feeding their baby.
Liz, as well, it also comes down to a question of a cost of living crisis. You know, here we are all struggling to make ends meet. We know how much formula milk costs, and you're making it harder for a mum of a 6-week-old to breastfeed her child, which is completely free. It's discouraging people. It's, it's the absolutely wrong narrative to be putting out at a time like this.
I totally agree. And also, you can express your milk and do it that way, should you, not want to do it in public yourself. But, with breastfeeding, it's something. I mean, I'm going back over 25 years with my daughter, Tallulah, and having to fly to Australia and back, which was, in those days, an over 30-hour flight. There was no way that I could not feed my baby. So I think I'd be very interested to know the figures on the number of people who object to breastfeeding. I'd be fascinated to know that. But going back, I mean, the law is that a woman can breastfeed in public.
I was just going to say, because we've had a few emails in about people who've had objections made in the past, and it would tend to be, Liz, with perhaps some older gentlemen. But is there, in terms of the whole etiquette of it, is this something where we think of etiquette as being set in stone in a way? This is what you do and this is how you do it. This is something which has to change with time.
Absolutely, and you use your common sense and aware are the people who may be sensitive. But again, if they're older gentlemen, as your other person said, you avert your eyes. You don't have to stare. You don't have to look at it. And it is a natural way of feeding a baby. But I still go back to the fact that obviously the stewardess was obviously not aware of the real rules and regulations, and it's up to her employee. I gather they have apologised and are looking into the situation.
Well, they were challenged before the family flew back from holiday on what exactly the company policy was. And TUI said they don't have a formal policy, but they recommend avoiding it during takeoff and landing in case it makes other people feel uncomfortable. But I return, Jen, to the point that never mind about other people feeling uncomfortable. If you have a 6-week-old baby, they need feeding at least every 3 hours. Surely that is the fundamental point here, not whether or not someone else who's totally unrelated to that family or situation feels or doesn't feel.
And also, what's it got to do with taking off and landing?
No, absolutely.
That's what's so ridiculous.
That's actually when you need to be feeding, because it helps them to...
And it helps them, doesn't it, with swallowing. They don't, because otherwise they get earache.
So, as adults, we know we can yawn, we can swallow, we can suck on a boiled sweet to help us equalise. A baby doesn't know that, and babies can get really distressed, and young children. Feeding a baby during takeoff and landing is an incredible way to help them feel comfortable. So, I mean, what was the alternative? And I think this mother shared this, that when she stopped breastfeeding her baby because she was told to, and she then felt, of course, really uncomfortable, the result was that her baby started crying. And what is, the one thing that actually is probably more controversial than feeding a baby on a plane is when they are crying on the plane.
Yeah.
Yes, that would irritate even more people, wouldn't it? We've got to leave it there. Liz Brewer, Jen Culley, really good to see you both.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.